how to naturally avoid the flu, how vitamin D actually works better than the flu shot.
Welcome to Excel Radio with Dr. Nick Zyrowski, where we talk with world-class entrepreneurs, executives, and health experts who have unlocked the secrets to excel health and performance.
Hi, and welcome to Excel Radio. This is your host and high-performance expert, Dr. Nick Zyrowski. In this episode, we are going to be talking about how to naturally avoid the flu this winter, and naturally avoid the flu season, and the key word there is naturally. We also are going to talk about pumpkins and how great they are for your overall health, all the nutrients that are in pumpkins and what you can actually do with them as far as meal prep and cooking with pumpkins. And then lastly, we're going to talk about how to thrive in the fourth quarter, how to stay healthy and active and really just crush this fourth quarter. In the show, I have Ashleigh here with me. Ashleigh, how you doing today?
Hey everyone, I'm doing great, thanks. It's a beautiful fall day here in Michigan. We've had a lot of fun this fall, everything from Halloween with the kids, carving pumpkins, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But over the weekend, we were given the opportunity to go get some organic apples. We were given a huge tote of organic apples, and they're McIntosh apples. They're delicious, they're sweet and juicy, but we have a whole tote of them, and so there's no way we could eat them all before they went bad, so we had to do something with them. So one fun thing we did this week as a family is we made over 20 quarts of applesauce, which is quite an operation.
It really was quite an operation. Yeah, I mean,
especially with the kids and everything else.
If you follow us on Instagram, you'd see. But it was quite an operation. I thought that when you make applesauce, it literally is something that you just can just knock out and go on with your day. But no, it turns into a whole day operation.
Mm-hmm, right, because with the canning process, and it was quite involved. But it was a lot of fun. And now we have 20 quarts of applesauce left after we gave some away that we'll be able to enjoy over the next year or so. But that only took care of about a quarter of the apples. So we have to figure out something clever to do with the rest of the apples. So definitely comment under the show and give us some suggestions of what we could do with the rest of our apples.
Absolutely, yeah. If we don't use them, they might just go to the wildlife. But let's jump into reviews. We have some great reviews. We want to start covering some of the reviews, and because we really appreciate when people give us a great review. We're very grateful for it. It's these very things that tell other people that there's quality in the show, that there's quality in the services that we offer. So we just want to start covering some of the reviews to show that our gratitude towards those people who leave great reviews.
Absolutely. So the review of the week, it says, "This is cutting-edge stuff by a cutting-edge healthcare provider. If you follow the advice, your life can do nothing but change. I love this information. I love this information that New Vision has made available, as it allows you to change your life with tangible tools and methodologies. I'm a huge fan."
And we got to appreciate that. That was put up on iTunes. So that's an awesome review, and we are very thankful for that.
Absolutely. So if you haven't left a review yet, definitely take a moment to leave a review, and you could get a shout out on one of the Excel Radio podcasts. We really appreciate that.
That was by Potentially You. So thank you, Potentially You. That was an awesome review, and we are very thankful for that.
Yeah, and the testimony of the week. So we have a testimony by one of Dr. Zyrowski's former clients, Daniel. It says, "I have suffered with arthritis nearly my entire adult life. It was so bad that I literally would take days off work because my joints ached so bad. The doctor I was seeing did not know how to manage it with anything but a medication. After my doctor told me I would have to get 2 injections a month for the rest of my life, I sought out a better way. A friend told me about Dr. Zyrowski, and so I gave it a shot. Dr. Zyrowski's testing that he ran on me revealed many issues, one being that my arthritis medication was destroying my liver. I am proud to say that after 3 months of working with Dr. Zyrowski, my arthritis is 100% gone. I have no pain, no swelling, no aches, and I feel great. My managing doctor of the arthritis was literally speechless with my recent lab results. Can't recommend his cutting-edge form of health care enough." And that was from Daniel.
And Daniel's a rock star too. I have to give it to him that, when sometimes it's a challenge for people when they have to start changing their lifestyle and changing the things that they do on a daily basis in order to achieve better health. And it's a big challenge for a lot of people, but Daniel did every bit of it. There was no question. If I said it, he did it. And so thank you for that amazing review, Daniel. But on the same hand, like I have to congratulate you for the excellent results. So that was awesome, and his health transformation was absolutely incredible.
It truly was, and he had a great support system too. His wife was on board. It was just they were rock stars. It was a great transformation. So we were talking a little bit about the fall weather earlier in the podcast, about what we had going on here in Michigan, and it doesn't matter where you are in the United States right now, pumpkins are everywhere. We just wrapped up with Halloween on Monday, and it was fun. Everybody usually has pumpkins, whether it be for decoration or carving, things like that, but it's basically October's signature fruit, and now that we're at the very beginning of November, there's leftover pumpkins everywhere. So we kind of wanted to talk about this hidden gem in the fall vegetable category and what you can do to use them to optimize your health and your performance.
Yeah, I think that, pumpkins are really great. A lot of people do not even think that you can consume them whatsoever, but...
Except in a pie, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, pumpkin pie, right? And yeah, outside of a pie, you don't ever eat them, right? But I have friends from Brazil, and one of the things that they do over there that's a big staple food is eating, like literally taking a pumpkin and filling it with all types of like meat and vegetables and cooking it. And so, that's when I first heard about it years ago. But, then you actually look into some of the nutritional factors right around pumpkin. It's actually pretty awesome because you look at just a cup of mashed pumpkin packs more than 200% of your daily recommended vitamin A. Vitamin A is necessary for vision, brain function, immune system function. So it's really necessary, and you can get a lot of it from pumpkin. Pumpkin is also rich in alpha and beta-carotene, two nutrients that have been associated with longevity. In fact, the free radical neutralizing carotenoids can help the skin stay wrinkle-free. We often think of bananas being this superfruit that is like a nature's energy bar. But the fact is that cooked pumpkin actually has more refueling potassium in it than the banana does. And not only does it have more potassium, however, it also comes with a lot less sugar. A cup of pumpkin contains 564 milligrams of potassium versus the banana, which has 422 milligrams. And then the other thing you have to consider about the banana is that the banana is higher in natural sugars. So you'll get about 14 grams per banana, where you'll get about 3.2 grams per cup of pumpkin. And that's important because banana naturally spikes your insulin levels, and somebody who is suffering from a condition or trying to avoid that extra sugar, that's still sugar. It's natural sugars, but it's still sugar, so it can spike your insulin, which could spike your blood pressure, so on and so forth. So anyway, the pumpkin has a lot of great nutrients in it. You just have to really know how to use them, I guess. And the one thing I didn't mention here are the pumpkin seeds. And
I love pumpkin seeds. It's something that I've eaten since I was a child during this time of the year.
Yeah, and pumpkin seeds are extremely rich in zinc, magnesium, potassium, protein, essential fatty acids, B vitamins, and this is really, once again, important for immunity, energy, and the balance of your hormones. I remember when I bought pumpkin seed oil. Pumpkin seed oil is really rich in zinc, and so I bought that one time because my zinc levels were low, and so I kind of just bought it as a way to supplement with it. So anyway, overall, the pumpkin seeds are loaded with a lot of great things, and I think that if you consume that and pumpkin, you're going to be a lot healthier for it. But one of the things is, when it comes to consuming pumpkin, not pumpkin seeds, people get that part, is consuming pumpkin. A lot of people don't really know what you would do with that besides put it in a pie. That's so what would you, how would you go about cooking a pumpkin or eating a pumpkin?
Sure. So let's talk about using the pie pumpkins because those are usually what people are using to cook. So they're a little smaller, a little easier to handle. One thing that I do, it's really easy. You're just going to chop the pumpkin in half. Once you chop it in half, seed it. Obviously, you can roast those seeds later, but you're going to just rub the inside flesh of the pumpkin with some oil and put them face down on a baking sheet. I usually line my baking sheet with unbleached parchment paper, and you stick that in the oven and let it cook until it can be easily pierced with a fork. When you're done, you can take it out and scrape out the insides, and then you have pumpkin puree. You can either mash it or blend it. When I was doing a lot of them, I just would throw it in my Vitamix and puree it. So then I have pumpkin puree. So with the pumpkin puree, I could use that. Obviously, you can use it for pies later on in the season, but I would add it to oatmeal. I make gluten-free muffins with the pumpkin. I make a black bean pumpkin chili, which is amazing. You can check out that recipe on newvisionexcel.com. I used it for my children. I would just feed them pureed pumpkin as one of their first foods. But you can preserve this if you can't use it all at one time. Certainly just put it in like Ziploc bags and lay them flat in your freezer and you can preserve it. So that's what I would do with a lot of my pumpkin. Another way you can do it is you can just carve out the top of the pumpkin like you would be if you were carving the pumpkin. So just chop off the top and you can stuff it, like Dr. Zyrowski said, with meats and vegetables, and you can roast the whole pumpkin in the oven and make a pumpkin stew. And one of our favorite ways to use the extra pumpkin puree is to make a pumpkin chocolate yogurt by combining some full-fat unsweetened yogurt, pumpkin puree, honey, cinnamon, and cocoa powder to taste. And that's just another quick, fun way to use the pumpkin this time of year. Now, speaking of this time of year, one of the biggest complaints for people in the health industry would be the flu. There's a lot of push for flu vaccines or flu shots rather. A lot of people staying home sick and losing days at work due to the flu. So I would love for you to kind of talk about what people can do to avoid the flu.
Yeah, absolutely. The flu is a big deal, and it's a big talk, a controversial topic in a way because a lot of people are trying to do the best they can and avoid the flu naturally, but they really just don't know how. And so, when fall arrives and we get this change of season, we talk about the seasonal illnesses like the cold and the flu, and one of the things that people will often wonder is if there's actually such thing as a seasonal illness. Why would viruses and bacteria come around during the fall and winter months? And the fact is that they don't. It's a total myth. The truth is that we're exposed to viruses and bacteria every day of our lives, not just in the winter months. And the thing that really determines whether or not you get sick is not the presence of viruses and bacteria, because they're always there. It's actually the state of your immune system. Mm-hmm. And so, in other words, it's not the seed, it's more of the soil. So when it comes to avoiding the flu, I want to talk about some of the research that is surrounding this, because you're going to really be shocked that the research that I'm going to cover will show what is the most scientific way to avoid the flu, not what you might see on TV, not what you might see at your local grocery store or pharmacy. We'll talk about the most scientific way to avoid the flu and the most scientific way to avoid the flu naturally, okay? So if we're talking about the flu, the one thing that we have to talk about is the flu vaccine, because that is something that has just become pushed on so many people anymore. And a lot of people aren't happy about it. I know some people that, they have their careers, and in order to even show up to work, they make them get the flu vaccine. And there was 147 million flu vaccines distributed last year. And the thing is that I always tell people when it comes to anything like this is that this is a business. Like, of course they're pushing for everybody to get it because it's a business. And, at the end of the day, like this, it's a monopoly. There's two major manufacturers of the flu vaccine. And altogether, between the two of them, It's estimated that they do about $4 billion in selling flu vaccines to people. So the more people you can get to take the flu vaccine, obviously the more money you make. So if you're in that business, you tell everybody to get it, clearly. So the thing is about the flu vaccine is the topic here isn't to discuss in depth the flu vaccine. We want to actually just talk about the most scientific way to naturally defeat the flu, but you kind of have to bring this up because it's the elephant in the room. So a couple things about the flu vaccine is, for one, the flu is completely unpredictable. Every year it changes, and so when they make the flu vaccines, the best thing that they can do is try to basically determine which strain will be out there, and a lot of times they miss the mark on this, and so it's unpredictable, and so many times the flu vaccine doesn't work in the first place. The other reason that the flu vaccine is not a good decision is because it contains thimerosal. And this is a neurotoxin, and it's very dangerous to the nervous system. There's many people who get neurologically based. I mean, you can literally just Google it. You'll see all kinds of neurologically based conditions coming from people who get the flu vaccine. Healthy people, there's a good chance that they might not have a response to it. But on the same hand, people who are challenged, their immune system's challenged, their overall health is challenged, then they could actually have some negative effects from this.
Well, why even risk it, really? I mean, it's a neurotoxin.
Yeah. Well, exactly. So the thimerosal is terrible. You do not want that in your body.
At any level, not even small amounts.
At any level. And actually there's the level's quite high in some of these flu vaccines, and they use it as a preservative. In order to keep viruses and bacteria from forming within it. And so there's a better way, and that's where we're going with this. And so it doesn't even really make sense in the first place. The whole idea of a flu vaccine is just nuts. Like I said, it's an industry. When you $4 billion a year that you weren't making prior to a flu vaccine, of course you're going to push a flu vaccine and say it's 100% necessary. But it just doesn't make sense because it doesn't run your cell-mediated immune system, which is actually what protects you from the flu. So we're going to talk about vitamin D and how vitamin D actually works better than the flu shot. And the reason that vitamin D actually works better than the flu vaccine is because the seasonal flu protection is based on your innate immune system, not your antibody immune system. The flu virus and the cold virus changes so rapidly that it's not like you produce antibodies for the flu. You don't do that because the flu is different every single year, and it wouldn't do any good if your body did produce these antibodies. So the part of the immune system that protects you from the flu is your innate immune system, because it attacks those pathogens and destroys them when you get exposed to them. It's not that you use your antibodies from the previous year to protect you from the flu, which is exactly why they change the flu vaccine every single year. It doesn't make any sense. It's not the antibodies that protects you from the flu. What the cell-mediated immune system does have is receptors for vitamin D. When you compare people who have adequate levels of vitamin D over the winter months, you'll find that the flu is drastically reduced in these people.
Mm-hmm. So what you're saying is that vitamin D, something simple like vitamin D, is going to boost your immune system protection, your frontline defense against the flu.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. And we're going to talk about some of the research based around that. Before we get into some of the research about that, let's talk about what vitamin D is, first of all. So vitamin D is not a vitamin at all. It's actually a hormone. And your body cannot it can't be produced by the cells, and it must be obtained through dietary sources. Vitamin D can be produced in the cells if it has the sun in order to help convert it. So we can't just produce vitamin D all by ourselves. We need the sun in order to support this process, this conversion process that goes on in our body. And so vitamin D is very important. And when it is winter, obviously we don't have the sun to convert the vitamin D and create it within the cell. Mm-hmm. So we actually need it from a dietary source. And now vitamin D is absolutely crucial. Vitamin D is required to activate your immune system. It upregulates the genetic expression of effectors that are used to attack viruses and bacteria, antigens and invaders. And also, in addition, vitamin D plays a huge role in immune function and is essential for controlling things such as insulin sensitivity, blood pressure, inflammation, blood coagulation. They've even found in some studies that vitamin D deficiency is a huge problem in people with cancer. So people who have vitamin D deficiencies are getting cancer, heart disease, autism. I mean, the list goes on and on. My point is that vitamin D is very important. So outside of just protecting you from the flu, it plays a huge role. A vitamin D deficiency plays a huge role in a whole bunch of diseases. And so...
an overall function of your body. I mean, you were talking about hormones, immune system, a variety of different things, blood pressure.
Absolutely. A lot of people actually have a vitamin D deficiency.
How many would you say, like, on average in America?
Well, it's estimated anywhere from 30 to 100%, I know pretty broad, of Americans, depending on their age and where they live, have a vitamin D deficiency. And it's estimated that more than half of the children in America are vitamin D deficient as well.
And is it those numbers so broad only because there's no way to test every American or even a large group of Americans depending on location?
Right. It's totally an estimation just because, all they can do is base it off what some lab data that's coming in. All they can do is really base it off of that. So if doctors are willing to participate in a study, then they look at this lab data from all over, and so that's why it's broad. So they just do the best they can on that. They also have found that many pregnant women are vitamin D deficient. Estimated about 3/4 of pregnant women in fact are vitamin D deficient, and that predisposes the unborn child to a lot of problems and deficiencies as well. They estimate worldwide vitamin D deficiency is an epidemic that affects 1 billion people. And so the fact is that spending too much time indoors and not being out in the sunlight is causing a big problem. People who are lathering on the sunscreen and actually not getting that sun hitting their skin and being able to absorb it, that's a problem. So we need to make sure that we're providing the things that are genetically required for our bodies and the nutrients that are necessary so that we can actually have good health.
Absolutely.
And so one of the things that's a major problem during the winter months is that people aren't getting the sun exposure. And so, I mean, they're covered up, right? It's cold out. And then, of course, you're just inside a lot.
Right.
And I know,
that's just the way that people with their jobs and our lifestyle anymore, we are indoors. There's not very many people that spend time outdoors anymore, even if you do have a nice climate.
Right. And, the thing is about the winter months is that in many places there's a lot more cloud cover. I know here in Michigan, we get cloud cover day after day in winter. And a lot of times if we even see the sun in the morning, by noon there's cloud cover again. So,
it drains your mood too.
Right. Drains your mood. I mean, that's why they say people, if you are prone to depression, don't live in a place like Michigan, I guess,
or Washington.
Or a place with a lot of cloud cover, So the vitamin D deficiency, as we mentioned, it leads to reduced immune function and makes you more susceptible to the cold and flu. And now remember, most industrialized humans do not even get enough sun exposure during the summer just because of their jobs, working indoors, working at a computer. And so this is a huge problem that's leading to all those different diseases I mentioned, but it's also, people aren't getting enough sun exposure during the summertime, which just leads to a whole bunch of issues once they get next to no sun exposure during the winter. So let's look at some of these studies. and really, because I don't want you to just necessarily take my word or say, okay, well, this is interesting. I want to just hit you with the facts and the studies when it comes to this, because I want you to really know that this is the real deal. Vitamin D actually is way more effective than the flu vaccine and any other method of avoiding the flu. Mm-hmm. So we're going to talk about some of the studies here. And go over that, and then we'll also talk about some of the other things you can do just to add to the results, okay?
And remember, why is this important? Because when you're sick or when your kids are sick, there's a loss of productivity there. There's a loss of quality of life. You don't want to be retroactive with this stuff. You want to be proactive. So that's why this is super important, and we're going to prove to you why vitamin D deficiency is the cause of the cold and flu.
Right. And so first fact is that cold and flu season is a vitamin D deficiency season. As vitamin D levels plummet from less sun exposure, then the cold and flu incidence start to skyrocket. And so just an excerpt from one study, they say solar radiation triggers robust seasonal vitamin D production in the skin. Vitamin D deficiency is common in the winter, and activated vitamin D, a steroid hormone, has profound effects on human immunity. So human immunity is a big deal when we're talking about getting cold and flu. And so we need our immune system to be working well. So if our immunity is low, then we are more susceptible to the cold and flu. Okay, so the next major fact when it comes to the cold and flu season is that supplementing with vitamin D is scientifically proven to prevent the colds and the flu. And then here's a little excerpt from the study. Vitamin D dramatically increases the expression of antimicrobial proteins in cells of the innate immune system, and that is the part of the immune system that immediately attacks and kills viruses, bacteria, and fungi. So this is really interesting because, it increases the antimicrobial proteins, which is going to kill off those very things that we're afraid of that are going to make us sick. So therefore, vitamin D is very efficient in ramping up the immune system in order to kill off these bad bugs. Now, here's another study. Countries with the highest blood levels of vitamin D from supplementation have the lowest incidence of seasonal cold and flu and have half the winter mortality rates. Now, isn't that interesting? Because one of the reasons that the flu vaccine is pushed so heavily is because all these people are dying and getting sick and how dangerous it is. When, the fact is that right here in the research that they're telling you if we have higher levels of vitamin D in our body, then we can avoid the cold and flu. And it's really interesting because, when you look at this and why don't people know this and why aren't people just supplementing with vitamin D over the winter? Yeah. It's because they're being sold a load of goods by companies who are benefiting from big profits. And so let's look at this study here. A randomized double-blinded placebo-controlled study reported that children taking vitamin D3 daily in the winter were 67% less likely to get the influenza. Now, who doesn't want that?
It's 67%. That's a huge shift in the direction in your favor just by supplementing.
Just by supplementing with vitamin D. How many kids are staying home from school sick, and how often are, right around the holidays, you're like, well, I don't want to take my kids to this person's house because their kids are sick. And imagine if all the kids were just supplementing with vitamin D.
Right. If you're a business owner, just think about how many people are calling out during the winter months because of illnesses. Everybody's taking vacation time around the holidays, but on top of that, you have a loss of productivity because people are sick. Now, if they just knew this information, it would help dramatically during the fourth quarter.
Oh, right. Exactly. Here's a great study. I love this one, actually. In a 3-year trial, supplementing with vitamin D reduced the incidence of colds and flu by 70%. After 2 years, they increased the amount of vitamin D intake and reached nearly 100% prevention rate for colds and flu. Only one of the 104 subjects developed cold and flu in the final year of the study. And so, I mean, it's just in the evidence, one study after another. It's just that most people don't know this. So that's why we compiled it for you. I compiled this so that you can literally be on the cutting edge of what to naturally do in order to control your own health. And then here's another study. On the basis of studies reviewed to date, the strongest evidence supports vitamin D therapy for influenza and viral upper respiratory tract illnesses, aka colds. And so, I mean, you know, it's 100% fact that with just a few seconds a day and a few pennies a day, that you can literally avoid the flu during the winter by just supplementing with vitamin D.
It's the best defense against the flu and the cold. Get it?
Yeah,
defense.
Exactly. I like that. and so, I mean, the state in which your immune system is functioning is very, very important. So the immune system is influenced by two main variables when we start looking at how this works. The first is the amount of stressors in our lives, and thus the amount of neurobiochemical downregulation of our immune system through the sympathetic nervous system and stress hormones. And so these increased stressors in our lives cause the genetic downregulation of our immune systems and really just cause our immune system not to be able to fight like it would. And now when we start talking about increased stressors, I mean everything that is put as a burden on our body, such as deficiencies, vitamin deficiencies, stress, and not getting outside to get the exercise, and neurotoxins. These things are all a burden to the body. So when we start talking about stressors, they come in a lot of
emotional
shapes and
stress
forms.
Too. I mean,
absolutely.
Physical stress, if you're not taking care of your body physically. I mean, your body doesn't know the difference between chemical, physical, and emotional stress. It's all stress.
Right. Stress is stress. So here's what you have to look at is what can you do? And this is the main reason that we're talking about this is what can you do to avoid the cold and flu? At this point,
vitamin D.
Yeah, exactly.
If we haven't said it enough, vitamin D.
Yeah. At this point, you know that you need to take some vitamin D. And I just laid out all the research for you, and there's plenty more where that came from. We'll actually list this research in the show notes because if you're one of those people who care enough to go look it up, it all exists, and it's very important. And if you want to read further on it, you can do that too. It's great. It's great to be aware of this sort of thing.
Definitely.
And so what you can do is, first of all, take vitamin D, okay? And now when it comes to taking vitamin D, it's just such a cheap way to avoid the flu. It costs pennies, which is why they would rather sell you a flu vaccine rather than vitamin D. So vitamin D is very cheap. Okay, now all vitamin D is cheap. It is just a very, very cheap vitamin. Now some of it's more expensive than others, and so that's why I just want to differentiate the between the two. Because if you ever seen or went to purchase vitamin D and you found that, let's say a 1 month supply was $5, and then another one, a 1 month supply was
$25.
I don't even think it gets that much. Let's say $15 to $20. And so if you look at those price differences, like I said, all of it's cheap in my opinion. But when you look at the price differences, the cheaper one will be made with low quality oils. It can come from soy. It can come from just cheap sources. And when you look at the ones that are more expensive, they come from more expensive oils such as olive oil. And so you want to get the ones that are made with good oils. Now, even some of the ones made from soy can be of good quality still. However, I prefer just to go with the olive oil ones and ones that are of high quality. You can look in our store. We only offer the high quality ones. We have one, I know, like I said, one's made with really high quality olive oil. And so it's important to make sure you get the better quality one. Don't just get the cheapest thing you can find. So vitamin D, good quality. That's what you want to think thus far. And so now let's talk about some other things that you can do to help increase your likelihood of staying healthy all winter long.
All right, so on top of vitamin D, we're going to talk about 5 things that you can do to reduce your chance of getting the flu, which was avoid the flu and thrive in the fourth quarter.
Okay, let's jump into that. So number 1 is eat more fresh fruits and vegetables to ensure that you're getting, you have good quality micronutrient levels in your body. So you want to make sure you have fruits and vegetables on a daily basis. You want to make sure that it's with every meal.
And try to eat according to the season as well. The fruits and vegetables that are in season are going to be richer in those nutrients than those that are off season.
Exactly. And so do that, increase your micronutrient levels through good quality fruits and vegetables. Mm-hmm. Now, number 2 is avoid refined sugars. You want to do this for 2 reasons. So when you consume refined sugars, one reason is that sugar directly lowers your immunity. It weakens your immune system. So stay away from the sugars and for that reason. Now, number 2 is sugar looks identical to vitamin C to the body. So what can happen is the sugar can actually stunt the vitamin C absorption, and then there you have a lack of vitamin C in the body, which is really necessary during the winter months as well to make sure that you can keep your immune system functioning well. So if you are consuming a lot of sugar, it can stop the absorption of vitamin C. They look very much the same to the body, and you really want to make sure that you avoid that sugar, and increase your vitamin C. Now, the other thing that's important to do, and this is number 3, is exercise regularly. So a lot of people, now that it's winter, it's cold, people aren't really getting outside and moving as much and running around out in the yard. They stop exercising. Now, you want to make sure that you keep exercising for a couple reasons. So one, when you exercise, you really push the growth hormone levels in your body, which helps immensely with the healing process in the body. And it also helps boost your immune system as well. And so, if you don't have the time to exercise, then you definitely want to look up the podcast where we talked about high intensity interval training. Mm-hmm. And we also talk about that on our website as well, newvisionexcel.com, talking about type in high intensity interval training, and you can find some information on that. That's pretty important as well. Because you can do that high intensity interval training in like 20 minutes. So there's no excuse. Everybody's got time for 20 minutes of exercise a day. So you could look into that.
Absolutely. And, one thing that I like to do, because I usually can't make it to the gym. I have kids at home, and it would require a lot of planning and organization, where it's just easier for me to get up first thing in the morning before everyone else is up and get a home workout routine in. And I personally like T25. It's fast, quick, and it's revolved around that HIIT mentality where you're going high intensity for a short period of time. And it involves little to no equipment. Other ways you can do it, if you go to work and there's stairs, skip the elevator or the escalator and just hit the stairs. Just do the simple little things to make a big difference.
Right, exactly. Number 4 is reducing your emotional stress. So a lot of times during the winter months, people are just, the hustle and bustle of holiday parties and just enjoying yourself with the family. A lot of people get stressed out over that. So emotional stress is a really big thing. So
if you don't have anyone to celebrate with, that's another reason for emotional stress during the holidays.
Right. So you need to make sure that you are working on your emotional stress as well, because that all plays a huge role in your overall health. So using some relaxation techniques such as meditation is going to be very beneficial. You can find out more information about meditation. We actually we have a podcast on meditation.
Kaylee Please is who we did our podcast with, so definitely look into that.
And then also there's an article on it as well. So make sure that you're relaxing and you're making sure that you are in a good emotional state, because once again, the body doesn't know the difference between physical, emotional, chemical stress, and it all affects the body the same. Now, the next thing, number 5, is reduce your physical stress. So research shows that physical stressors like poor posture, just sitting at a desk all day, hunched over with your head forward, looking at a computer. And these things really play a big role on your overall immune system and stress hormones. So if you are going to worry about your immune system, then you want to make sure that you're watching your posture, watching your overall structure. And it's shown that getting chiropractic care can actually help quite a bit, boosting your immune system and removing this physical stress from your body. So that's another thing you can look into. And so with that said, those are the 5 things that you can do, 5 things that you can do on top of taking vitamin D.
So obviously vitamin D is absolutely essential, something that you have to do, not things you can do.
It's a must.
It's a must.
Yeah.
So the 5 things are: 1, eat fruits and vegetables, fresh fruits and vegetables to ensure your sufficient levels of micronutrients. 2, avoid refined sugars, which we also did a podcast on removing sugars. And if you need help with recipes, definitely check out the Heal Yourself cookbook. Number 3, make sure you're exercising regularly. We recommend high intensity interval training. Number 4, reduce your emotional stress. And number 5, reduce your physical stress.
Yeah, and if you do all these things, then you're going to be able to fight the flu like nobody else can. And if you also utilize these same tips in your workplace and share them with your family, they're going to be able to benefit from this as well. So vitamin D is huge. Like I said, I went over research with you to show that it is much more effective than any flu vaccine. And it's simple. I mean, just you can get vitamin D for very cheap. It's pennies, and compared to the amount of loss that you may have when missing work or driving to the doctors and everything else, I mean, please believe me, vitamin D is going to save you a fortune. So
absolutely. So with these 5 crucial steps and the vitamin D, I mean, yes, this is going to take some time out of your day to make sure that you're doing these things, but it is not a waste of time. It is an investment in your health, and especially during this busy season, you want to make sure that you are on your A game and that you are able to not just survive, but thrive. So that's all that we have for you guys today.
Absolutely, and thanks for coming on the show with us again, and check out the research in the show notes if you're interested in that. Don't forget to leave us a review, and we look forward to being with you on the next show.
All right, take care.
Bye.
If you want more information to multiply your health and simplify your lifestyle, visit our website at excelpodcast.com. Until next time, have an outstanding day.